You know, I've been meaning to do a second version of this for a while. Jeez. Okay. So I made a video a while ago that I think I titled like explaining politics is hard in some sort of way. And I think one of the funniest things that has kind of come about from making that video was I kept thinking of different ways to kind of explain my worldview, you know? And every single time I try to explain it to someone, it always gets confused. Just slightly confused with like how other people would describe it and how like colloquial terminology is. But one of the most simple ways to kind of explain it is whether or not someone is on the populist line, which is just north of this black bar. Anything that is north of it, of like 2 blocks, is what I would consider to be kind of like normal parlance when it comes to I don't think I used that word correctly, but like it's where I would consider like most people. Once you go below the line, you start getting into weird territories, and I think the real problem that we have right now in politics is that there are people that sit around here, just under the populist line on the left, that make discourse a little weird. And we also have people in the authoritarian right that make it just as difficult. And it's hard to explain. It's like, here, let me grab this. So if I were to if I were to say like where is the median like American voter, I would say probably around like here. Like I would say that like the Democrat Party is like sitting here inside of like liberalism. The center is a little bit off from mainstream liberalism, but like probably like about like right there actually. Uh it's weird to explain. It's like I would say that like somewhere around like here in this like rectangle is like most American voters, and I think like the right is over here. And the reason why the right has a hard time explaining their worldview is because it veers slightly off of liberalism, you know? But it's easy to explain the broad concepts, and most Americans will understand the broad concepts because they're already on the like in the global scale, in a global scale, like on the right. But like the second like a libertarian shows up and they try to explain their worldview, sometimes people like kind of like shake their head going like, what are you talking about? And I think one of the hardest things to kind of explain is like where certain people are. I'm unironically tempted to start randomly pulling up like well-known people online and just try to like armchair like sociology 101, like where exactly on this list are they? I would say that there's like a lot of like content creators on YouTube that like sit like pretty close to the line, but they're in liberalism. And there's just as many that sit just off of the line into progressivism. And this median line right here must always be maintained. And it's sort of why like you need multiple parties in any sort of country, because like you can't just have the American right and the American left but then not have any other like direction, you know? I've retooled some of the wording, you know, that I've used for this, but I think it's a little bit better at kind of explaining. So, when you are kind of sitting on the debate between left populism and right populism, you're basically fighting against like union collectivism versus versus American liberalism. And you could have like more classical liberalists, which are like right here, which are look a lot closer to conservatives, but they still kind of lie within this sort of like this like center vector, you know? Uh but what it eventually comes down to is not like union loving collectivists versus like uh representative republic liberalists. Like that's not what like we eventually get to. It's always conservatives fighting against communists. And it's just like and oftentimes when they say communist, they basically say any person who's close to left populism. Like I have heard so many times like someone mentioning communism when they're actually talking about socialism, and then oftentimes referring to communist countries when they're talking about Marxists. And it eventually just gets to this point where of course they're going to refer to it like that because communism is far left as you can go. But like it's so funny because like every once in a while someone will actually get like the terminology correct, and they will refer to someone as a theocrat. When they're like, "Oh, they're conservatives." No, they're a theocrat. They're someone that like wants the church to rule their state. There's a difference between that and conservative. It's just that American conservative has a lot of religious baggage with it, especially nowadays. And they're direct counter opposite when it comes to like high north authoritarianism across the left right dichotomy is fascism, where instead of the church running it, it's revering the state as their religion, you know? And it really just comes down to this. It's like, and then it's like there have been times in which I've heard someone go like, yeah, they're not as far right as like I would expect. And then I look at them and they're like a monarchist. That's like, yeah, like it was like Napoleon was a cool guy. It was like talking about like all of these like world leaders about like how they like completely ran their country as a kingdom, and it's like they come off as monarchists more than actual uh, like actual like democracy, because democracy is like over here. It's like if you're a progressive, you're a person that likes like democracy as a whole. It's like, and then representational government is right here. you know? And then it's like the different types of like col- of like free marketplace of ideas like libertarians like, and then the type of representational government that like union workers are. And so it's like uh it's it's just really funny. Like also like shown this whole diagram to someone, and they kind of go like, "Why do you have this like gray bar?" And then I just show them this. Primitivism is a return to disconnected tribal units by destroying everything around them so that there's only disconnected tribal units across the entire planet. And they sit there and go, "Oh yeah, I can see how that would be just untenable for a country." And also like kleptocracy over here, which is just like every single time you have ever seen like a cyberpunk dystopia, it's always a kleptocracy because it's always like three PMC companies that are like running the entire planet. And like if that type of system is created by falling apart, you have like anarcho capitalism where you unironically just get immortal engines. Uh, and then over here, you have a grouping of ideologies that I've just coined as nothingism. Like, it's like you could say nihilism, but in reality, like political nihilism is right there. You never want to be right there. Because if you're right there, you literally are just a husk of a human being. Nothingism is literally like the type of libertarian where you want to be out in the middle of the woods with nothing around you. And just the like thought of wanting to be someone like that just weirds me out. Like I completely understand like wanting to like homestead out in the middle of nowhere, but like believing that that should be the only way to live is kind of weird. Not gonna lie. But yeah, I have retrofitted this entire diagram specifically so I can like explain to people. And again, like most people, I would say, like in the entire planet, like sits on these two rows right here, where it's like directly on the line to a little bit north of center. And I would say that like a lot of people that refer to themselves as leftist are like within this like little like band over here. Whereas like most of America like reaches all the way over here into like far right territory over here. And so it's like when I accurately refer to someone as conservative, and they are the type of like far right conservative that is this type of person. It's hard to explain. It's always so hard to explain this shit. You know? It's just eh. It's like I keep having to reconstruct this whole thing just because I always keep getting upset that I don't have a good diagram. So here it is. This is the whole diagram, and I just need to go to bed.